Hi, I'm Angie, a pre-vet student at Clemson University and your host on So You Want to Be a Veterinarian, a show that dives deep into the complex layers of veterinary medicine and their related fields to uncover the abundant and less-known paths. Today, I'm so excited to announce Dr. Nicki Wise is here to talk to us about her career as an equine internist and the role she plays in the first vet school established in South Carolina, pending accreditation. Dr. Wise is the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs at Clemson University's new Harvey S. Peeler Jr. College of Veterinary Medicine, and she brings such an incredible mix of experience and passion to the field. Not only is she a board-certified specialist in equine internal medicine with a DVM from the University of Georgia, but she holds a PhD in immunology and infectious disease from Washington State University. Over the years, she's done some amazing research on equine infectious diseases and veterinary education, and has been recognized for her outstanding teaching with awards like the Zoetis Distinguished Veterinary Teaching Award. What really stands out about Dr. Wise, though, is how much she cares about the next generation of veterinarians, as you can see from her being here today. Thank you so much, Dr. Wise, for taking time out of your day today to be here and joining me on the podcast. I know the advice you'll give today will be very informative to future vet students, and I'm delighted to have you on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Since you play such a big role in the Harvey S. Peeler Jr. College of Veterinary Medicine, I think it would be best to discuss the vet school alongside your past career as an equine veterinarian, starting with how you got to where you are today. So to get us started, could you introduce yourself and tell us why you got into veterinary medicine in the first place?
Yeah, good question. So I grew up in Walterboro, South Carolina, so down in the low country. Was not one of those kids that was like, early identifier or whatever, that ever since I was 3, I wanted to be a vet. That wasn't me. I did grow up around animals. I grew up around horses, and knew, like, as I started thinking about career options, I wanted to do something sciencey, but wasn't totally sure what that was. I started out as a marine biology major because back in the late 90s, we were going to save the whales. I don't know if your generation knows about that, but that was a thing. And stayed on kind of that track of biology, science, something like that. I transferred to Winthrop University, go Eagles, and did a biology degree there, and really had some amazing advisors along the way that helped me think about, like, what do you want to do with this sciencey stuff? So I tried research. I worked at a human hospital. I worked at a vet clinic back home in Walterboro. And I think, after some time doing those different things, you start to think, okay, what do I want to do, like, every day for the rest of my life kind of thing, right? And going to vet school is a big decision. So I think it's really important to make sure that you know what you're getting into, right? And you see all sides of it. And so I think around my senior year, I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's try the vet school path. And I think what really attracted me most to it, obviously the medicine is very cool and the surgery's fun and all that sort of stuff. But I think it's that relationship building piece of being a veterinarian. So growing up in a very small town, the veterinarians there are like, they do a lot of community service. Servant leadership is a big deal, right? I mean, people are looking to them for all kind of advice, and veterinarians sometimes are kind of like the therapists, things like that. People have a lot going on, and I really loved watching how the vet that I worked with navigated those, for the most part, really great relationships that she had with their humans in taking care of their animals. So that human-animal bond piece for me felt kind of like a really cool thing that you could do a lot with in your life. So I got into Georgia. So I was I got a South Carolina spot at Georgia. Went there, loved it. It still exists, right? Yeah, it existed for last year's class. Now that we're here, we'll have our own South Carolina school, which is very cool. So went to Georgia, wasn't fully committed to a track at the beginning, tried lots of different things. I worked as an overnight ICU technician in the large animal barn for one of my random jobs that I took, and really fell in love with large animal medicine and specifically really sick horses, which sounds weird, but like is so cool to watch these horses come in and be so sick. And then, most of the time you have a successful outcome, which was really neat. So, I had some great mentors at the University of Georgia, and that really kind of pushed me to think, general practice as a horse vet's always a great option. But also, maybe you want to be the person that general practitioners are referring their cases to, right? Like you learn about in class, and I say, oh, you would refer this. Well, but what if I don't want to refer it? What if I want to know how to deal with it? So, had some great advisors that said, yeah, try the next step and see how it goes. So I went through the match, which we can talk about that if you're interested, the veterinary internship residency matching program, and matched to Texas A&M for my internship. So did my undergraduate degree, 4 years at Georgia, and then a 1-year internship at Texas A&M. I did a rotating large animal internship, which means I did horses, cows, goats, whatever came in the large animal hospital, all the surgery, medicine things, and solidified my love for equine internal medicine and being with students. And then I matched for a residency at Washington State. So packed up my dogs and moved further across the country to Pullman, Washington, which I had never set foot in my life, and moved there. Bought a single wide trailer, sight unseen, and drove up there and did my medicine residency there. It was wonderful. And when I finished my residency, kind of had the choice of thinking about, do I want to go into private practice or stay in academia and kind of pursue that piece of things? Decided to stay on there in Pullman, get a job with the USDA Agricultural Research Service. And it was a program that allowed me to get my PhD at the same time, which was cool. So I had a real grown-up job with like money and benefits, but also was getting another degree, which made my dad very happy that I actually had income at some point. So stayed there and did that. And really that was the time when I kind of fell in love with the education side of things. So I knew I loved being around horses and working through horse diseases and things like that, but took some education courses and really started to realize what a huge impact, you can treat a horse and you make that horse better and you make that human happy. But if you teach students to treat the horse, then you're creating hundreds of humans that are going to go out into the world and make a difference. And that was really cool for me. So once I finished there, I got a job in the Caribbean. So I moved from the Pacific Northwest all the way down to the West Indies and took a position on faculty at St. George's University. Was there for a long time, loved it there, met my husband there, started my family there, and kind of pursued the faculty thing, did the education thing, and then really got into the administrative side of things. Because again, you can have a huge impact on students when you make sure that the program you're delivering and the way you're delivering their curriculum is really impactful and they're getting all the support they need. And then the state of South Carolina decided they were going to start a vet school. And so it wasn't really a hard question to think about being able to come home and be a part of this, which is really neat. So kind of full circle.
Yeah.
And it's been really awesome to be a part of this, what we're doing here at Clemson from the very beginning almost. So
I love that journey for you. I mean, especially your point about making sure you're going out and trying out your career before you really step foot in it it's such a strong point that I try to tell all my friends. Like, you need to get a job, get an internship, try it, make sure you love it, because before you have the degree and you're sitting at the desk and realizing, maybe I should have gotten that internship before I decided to do this.
absolutely, yeah. Is it a good fit? Are you going to be able to live the kind of lifestyle you want to? And I think the DVM as a graduate degree, a post-baccalaureate degree, is very versatile, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can do clinical medicine, you can do research, you can work for the government. So there's a lot of things you can do with it, but you still have to get through the vet school program, right? Which is 4 really intense years of all the things really predominantly focused on that clinical medicine side of things. And so, yeah, being fully informed about all the things, like if you want to save the whales, go ride in a boat all day and see how that works out for you. So, yeah.
Do you mind asking, like, how it was starting a family abroad? Like, how was that experience?
Well, it was great for me. I will say that it takes a big leap of faith. And I think you mentioned you had a previous guest that talked about their experience in the Caribbean and living in a country like Grenada. You have such amazing experiences. Like, on a Saturday, you can just go scuba dive. And that's not something that comes around all the time. And so I absolutely loved my time there. The education system is different there. The healthcare system is different there. So it's not the same as living in the United States. And for some people, it probably doesn't check the boxes of what they, need. Like you can't order Amazon there. That's not a thing, right? Yeah. So you can't pop to Target and get a new pair of pants. Like if you want pants, somebody has to ship them to you, or you need to bring them home with you after you go home at Christmas. So I think it changes your focus away from more of like I don't know if materialistic is the word, but you tend to focus less on like what you have and what you can get, and
like that over-consumer.
Yeah, and you instead just are there for the experiences.
Yeah.
Like, you go to the grocery store with a list of 20 things. They have 5 of them. You just get over it and go to the beach. You know what I mean? And so it definitely helped, I think, with my mindset about things, and kind of I've always been a bit of a person who enjoys control. So moving to the Caribbean, yes, and then putting children on top of that is a great way to realize you have actually very little control over things. So
I can see that.
Yeah, but it was wonderful. I loved it there.
Well, you kind of answered my next question about describing your path from vet school to becoming board certified. But could you kind of touch on what vet students could do to kind of I guess maybe enhance that experience into their residency, make the most out of it, get into a program in the first place?
Well, I think what's important is there will be, so if you look at a class of veterinary students, there's some that are like, I know exactly what I want to be when I graduate. I'm going to be a board certified dermatologist. I'm going to open a practice in this town. They've got it all figured out. And that's great. But the other half of the class who's like, I don't know, they worry like maybe I don't have it figured out. But that's actually really great, because going into it very open-minded and approaching every class and every species and every topic with an open mind, and as you're going through vet school and learning and absorbing all this and being around all the amazing faculty and staff, is saying, what things really get me excited? What things do you discover about yourself that are maybe not for you? Like maybe you're really scared of snakes. Okay, you can probably scratch that off the list of being a snake vet, right? But be very open-minded to the things that, because I didn't go to vet school planning to be a horse veterinarian. That wasn't on the table at all. I was going to be a dog vet, and just like everyone else I knew. And then it turns out that was actually not the best fit for me. So I think being very open-minded is important. I think, if you look at a class of 100 veterinary students, there's only a small percentage that go on to do additional training outside of that 4 years, right? So when you graduate with your DVM, you pass your NAVLE, you can go practice any kind of veterinary medicine you want to. But for about 20% of each class, the students want a little bit more, right? They want to get some of that focused additional training through an internship, and then an even smaller percentage go on to do that residency piece of it. So I don't think it's for everyone. I think it's for those people that, like myself, self-identified from the beginning that maybe I wouldn't be as fulfilled with a career in doing general practice things, that I wanted to be more academic in the way I approached cases, right? And so it's not for everyone, but you don't know that till you try it, right? And so it's getting that experience. The way our curriculum is set up here at Clemson, they'll do the traditional 3-year program, and then in the 4th year, get experiences here at Clemson, but also be out in practices. And you can really pick and choose what things you might be interested in. So if you're entering your 4th year, about to graduate, and you're still like, oof, I don't know. Like, do I want to do large animal? Do I want to do mixed? Do I want to do this? You have an opportunity to kind of tailor what those experiences look like to try all of it, because otherwise you don't really know. So it's actually okay to go into it kind of open-minded, not having a path in mind, and see where things take you, and you may decide clinical medicine's not for you. Maybe you do a research project and you're like, wow, pipetting is the best, things like that, right? Or maybe you get into the policy side of things and you want to affect change from a legislative standpoint. So I think it's just, that's the main advice I would get, is just be open-minded and find some really good mentors that you can go have these conversations with and be like, you know what I hate? This. How do I find a career where I can avoid this, right? And work through that. So, yeah.
I think that's really comforting. I think a lot of people listening just took a big, deep breath, and I'm like, okay, I don't need to know everything right at this moment. You have those 4 years and beyond to figure that out in vet school. So
yeah, and even after you graduate, maybe the first job you take is a small animal general practitioner, and you get 2 or 3 years into it, and you're like, oof, I'm bored. Reinvent yourself. Go back and do a radiology residency. It's a really versatile degree. I think that some students, and rightfully so, because most students have loans and they need to start paying them back. They're like, the first job I get's the forever job. It is super not. Like that student, Nikki, if you just said that this is what I'd be doing, I would, yeah, absolutely no chance, right? So I think, yeah, it's all about just making the degree work for you. So.
Yeah. Would you recommend going into like a general practice, kind of like just to get your hands wet, like get situated before doing an internship or residency?
That's a good question. I don't think there's a correct path for everyone. So I think it has to do with your personal circumstances, your location, your financial situation. Internships are starting to pay more than they used to, but you will make a lot more money going directly out into private practice than you would doing an internship. There's not a huge benefit to doing the internship unless you're toying with the idea of going into a specialty. So if you're like on the fence, if you're like 50-50 general practice, or maybe I want to specialize, and you don't need to start making money right away, right? I mean, you have enough money to live, but not, probably not going to take out a mortgage during your internship, if you know what I mean. If you have that flexibility in your family life and things like that, you can give it a go and see how that directs you. You also, if you're like, well, I want to do an internship because I need mentorship. I won't be ready after 4 years to practice on my own. That's not true, probably, right? And you can find a private practice job as an associate vet with really great mentorship. And in fact, I think that should be a requirement, right? So I think gone are the days of, like, if you want that extra bit of mentorship and guidance that you have to do an internship, it's not really true anymore. So I would say if specialty medicine or going into a residency is not on the table for you, an internship probably doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
So, yeah.
So working with the PCVM, how has that affected your career? Like, in terms of, is that really why you came back to South Carolina and you kind of like resituated yourself on the administrative side?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was doing administrative work at St. George's, which was wonderful. And I think I would not be here back home in South Carolina without this college opening here. So I've dedicated my life to veterinary education. And so, my family's always, are you coming back? Are you coming back? Not unless there's a vet school. And now there is. So I had to, but I would say that, it's to say that this was like an aspiration of mine wouldn't be inaccurate. But I think the opportunity to come back to the state, met Dean Marks and really found that our vision and kind of his goals for this college and for the state really aligned with mine. I think that's really important when you're doing something that's very abstract and aspirational, that everybody on that inaugural team is really kind of on the same page is really important. And I don't think anyone that's starting a new college really has any idea what they're getting into until you start doing it, right? But I think it all circles back to what I said for the reason I got into veterinary medicine is that relationship building piece it's nothing without that, right? Building this team, what the faculty that we've hired so far are just amazing humans, and standing back and watching the work they're doing to get our curriculum ready and realizing how lucky our students are going to be in the classroom with them, and our facilities and everything as it's coming together. Yeah, it's just the most fun you could possibly have. But no, I certainly couldn't have ever predicted that I would be in this kind of position for sure. So, yeah.
I will say I got to, I guess, watch or listen to a lecture by Dr. Fogel, the one of the immunology professors at PCVM. He came in while my professor was in China, and I loved his teaching style. He's such like a great professor. Like, you can tell he loves what he's doing and loves the students. And I was like, okay, this is giving me hope. Like, not for the PCVM obviously, but like for vet school in general, just like, okay, maybe it's not gonna be how I'm expecting, and like having professors like this, I can get through it and I can be successful. And I really think that just seeing him with that one lecture, like, he was open to answering questions, and he was using case studies and like walking around with a marker showing us like what he was talking about when explaining things. And I think that it made it really easy to understand, but he wasn't like dumbing it down by any means. So I think that was like really inspiring to see, just like just seeing that.
Well, I think that's the ticket, right? Is, you know, if you have a person who's just really smart in their area, doesn't mean they're necessarily an effective educator, right? So all the humans we've hired so far and the ones we will continue to hire are super smart. They are experts in their field. They've done all the things. They know all the things. But what's more important to us when we're building our team is that they love students. They want students to be successful. They're excited about getting in the classroom. And I'm sure that excitement that he was exuding makes it very engaging. And so you take these really complex, difficult concepts, which vet school is hard. It should be hard, right? Like, we're training doctors.
Yeah.
So it should be hard, but it doesn't have to be without that support and excitement and engagement that comes with it. So I think, yeah, that's when I've had the most rewarding experiences in class. And so there's no reason why we can't do that in our curriculum as well. So.
Well, this episode, I wanted to try something new, and I started asking my followers on Instagram for questions to ask on podcasts. So this episode, Amadea Friedel from Charleston, South Carolina asked, what did your resume look like going into vet school?
Oh, goodness. And it's a very long time ago.
I know you'd mentioned you worked in a vet clinic and you worked in a hospital. Yeah. Do you mind touching on, maybe, I don't know if it's still relevant today, but like your GPA at the time, like maybe the classes you took?
Sure. So let's see. So this is going into vet school. So when I was an undergrad, I was a biology major at Winthrop, chemistry minor, and so I didn't take any animal science type courses whatsoever. It was all just science stuff. They didn't really have any. I think I took zoology, maybe, was the most animal-y course they had at Winthrop. I had a lot of work and volunteer experience on my resume, and not glamorous jobs. Things like I cleaned the microbiology lab on the weekends.
Oh.
I TA'd anatomy, things like that. So anywhere where I could get some additional experience, and not necessarily like at a vet clinic, but just anything where I was kind of in the trenches. Also, I needed some money, so that was helpful. And did little research projects, things like that. I think what that allowed was connection with my professors in a way that then led to me getting really good letters of reference. I mean, I didn't read the letters of reference, but I did not have a 4.0 going to vet school. So I can only assume that my letters of reference from my faculty at Winthrop and also the veterinarians that I worked with, I assume they were really good because I did not get into Georgia on numerical data alone. I can guarantee you that. I don't remember what my GPA was. I mean, it was fine, but at the time that I went to Georgia, we had to take the GRE and the biology GRE. That's not a common requirement anymore for vet school. And I don't remember exactly what my score was, but I do remember I was in the bottom 33rd% or both of those. So I was like, well, if Georgia needs these to be really good, I'm out. But I got in. So I would assume that it was based on my experiences and my letters of reference, things like that. I don't know. I never looked at my packet. But so my resume probably looked like lots of weird, odd jobs, lots of little kind of side research project things I would help out with. Like, one of my advisors was a kinesiology professor, so like nothing that had anything to do with anything, but I would go in the weekends and he would make humans run on this treadmill and measure things, and I would just do the spreadsheets for him. Like stuff like that really didn't take a lot of time, but then I had that connection with that professor. Yeah, and then I worked at a vet clinic over the summers. I was a waitress. I worked at a hunting and fishing store that processed deer as well. So
it's like anatomy.
Really random. Sure, yeah. In retrospect, I know about deer anatomy. But yeah, I think you're just taking all the courses. You try to get good grades, but you don't. I mean, the average GPA of people that got into veterinary school last year in the U.S. was like a 3.56, I think. So you need to have good grades, but you do not have to have a 4.0 to get into veterinary school. So does that answer your question? Probably.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, I guess we can move on from whole like vet school kind of talk. And I know you're not a practicing doctor anymore, but What were the most common cases that you saw in horses? Like, I'm guessing it was a lot of colicky things.
Colic and feet. Yes.
Colic and feet.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So tummy troubles and lameness are always going to be the most common things for horses. Yeah. Yeah.
Were those like easily preventable or?
Mostly no. So, and you'll find this out in veterinary school. The horse's anatomy does not set itself up for the best of luck. So, just for instance, the horse's foot. So they are walking around on their middle finger, right? So 1,000 pounds of weight is distributed for P3 of their, evolutionarily their middle finger. And the way that hoof capsule is and the bone suspended within the hoof and all, it set up for disaster at all times. Same thing with their GI tract. They have, 80 feet of intestine in their belly, and it's adhered down in 3 places. So it's just set up for issues at all times. Now, of course, keeping your horse healthy, a good diet, having their feet trimmed, those sorts of things can always help. So just good husbandry.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some things you just honestly can't prevent. So, and that's why we have horse vets.
To help. Yeah. Yep. Very true. Oh, what have you found to be the most rewarding part of your career?
Of my whole career so far?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, future me would say when that first class walks across the stage in 2030 at the Clemson College of Veterinary Medicine commencement, I will be a disaster. So let's just prepare for that. There will be no amount of waterproof mascara that'll get through that day. But right now, I would say that I've had a few students that in my career that have gone through some really hard stuff, right? Like veterinary students, that time in your life is fraught with lots of things that can, not go as planned, right? So when I've had those students that, whether it was health stuff, mental health stuff, family things, stuff like that, to watch those students be in a really rigorous, difficult program. When we were on the island, they were away from home, and to watch them kind of rally and work hard and use the support systems that were available and find a way to not get over it, but cope with whatever's going on in their life and still push through and graduate. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the coolest thing ever, to have them walk across that stage and know that they're moving on with the next phase of their life. And doesn't mean that whatever they went through is over and they're, I've moved on, but they've grown as a result of it. And so for me, for those few students, being able to help them get to that point, that feels pretty good.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting that you chose like a more administrative side instead of the medical side. Like it really shows like your personality, I feel like, who you are coming through.
it's evolved. Yeah. 10 years ago, it would have been some little sick baby horse that went home, and I could still name all of those too. But, knowing that those students that graduated and are now, they're the ones sending those sick baby horses home, that feels pretty full. So.
And on the opposite side of the spectrum, what would you find the most challenging part of your career has been?
That's a good question. I guess I don't know that it's a challenge, but I would say it's a constantly moving target
Mm-hmm.
with education in terms of what the students need to be successful, right? So when you're bringing in a class of veterinary students that are coming from all different areas, all different experiences, all different backgrounds, and finding a way to educate them and support them and work with them so that they all come together, right? What I needed as a veterinary student is going to be very different than what you need and expect as a veterinary student, right? Because it's been quite a long time. So things have changed, technology, all the things that are available to us. So I wouldn't say that it's negative in terms of a challenge, but just the thing that keeps me most on my toes is making sure that veterinary medical education and our curriculum specifically is going to continue to evolve and meet everyone's needs kind of where they are. I mean, yeah. So that's not really a negative. I can't really think of like a negative.
Well, that's good, I think.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads into my next question, I guess. Like, if you look back on everything you've accomplished in your life, would you do the same thing again? Or do you wish that you would have gone
This
into
is like a therapy sesh, Angie. Okay. I don't think I would do anything differently. I think I do think I could have ended up lots of places and be just as happy, right? So I think looking at different time points where I made big decisions, like end of my residency, am I going to go into private practice or do the PhD route, right? Like that was a big decision point for me because that changed the trajectory of my life. If I'd have gone private practice and I was now, who knows where I'd be, driving around in a truck looking at sick horses, I think it'd be great too, right? So yeah, I think again, once you get that veterinary degree and you've got the letters and the credentials and the license to then make it what it is, I think it really opens the doors wide open to be able to reinvent yourself, and maybe 10 years from now I retire and go back and get that truck and start floating teeth again. I don't know, right? I think that's unlikely, but maybe, right? Yeah. But I could. That's the cool thing, So yeah, no, I think I'm right exactly where I'm supposed to be. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Do you wish you had gone into administration earlier? Or no? Okay.
Mm-mm. I don't. And I think it would be very hard to really adequately support faculty and students if you're not in the trenches doing the teaching, right? Like I think if you're not the person in the clinical skills lab with the students working through this and working through that and in the lecture hall or whatever it is you're doing, I think it's then very hard to, create policies and offer support if you're not in that. And same thing with like students needing extra support. Like I am not an expert in disability services, or I'm certainly not a mental health counselor, but I know enough that I can get those humans that need those things to the right places and provide that kind of intermediary support. And I think without doing that as just a normal old faculty member, you're really maybe not equipped to be in this kind of position. So
I think that kind of leads me to get into the next part. Finally get into the talk about the vet school a little bit. One of the questions I really have, obviously with mental health and how big of a role it plays today in veterinary medicine, how will the PCVM be like supporting student wellness and making sure there's like support students services built into everything? Like, will you have, I know you talked about a mentorship program briefly, but like with mental health, work-life balance, tutoring, like how will they ensure student support, I guess?
That's a great question. So first, I think it's very thoughtfully designing the curriculum. Okay. So I think if you look at veterinary curriculums in accredited schools, you can see some big sweeping differences, right? But I think historically, at least when I was in school, it was like, just dump all this information. Here's all the things you've ever wanted to know about all the animals, everything, okay, for 3 years. And then 4th year, go into the clinic and be a baby doctor, right? And it worked. I mean, it worked for me. It's worked for, 100 years. But it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to be in class 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, with a 30-minute lunch break. Can you survive that? Absolutely. Do you have to? Probably not. And also, is that really teaching you to be a self, kind of being able to drive your own learning when you get out of school? Because at some point you graduate, you don't have that structure, you don't have that support system. You're going to have to continue to grow and learn. So making sure that vet students from the beginning really can take some ownership of their time and be able to time manage and be able to figure out how best they learn, things like that. So I think, first of all, structuring the curriculum in a way that there is enough time to have lunch. There's enough time to run home and let your dog out if you need to. There's time off during the week for you to do normal things like go to the bank or go shopping, things like that. So that's the first step at it. The second one is making sure that we're thinking really thoughtfully about how we assess the students. So historically speaking, you've got this huge courses, tons of information, and you get 2 grades, a midterm and a final. What if you really do crappy on one of those? Then you got a bad grade in the class, right? And so thinking more about, is that the best way to test student knowledge? Or should we be doing weekly check-ins to see if what we're teaching and what you're absorbing is working? Helps the students stay on top of things a little bit better and not be cramming for a final at the very end of their course, which is what I did in vet school. Don't tell anyone. Not the best way to learn, right? So from a structure of the program piece of it, I think those two things are really important. And then as you go along in the curriculum, the assessments get more rigorous. They get more focused on kind of what those licensing exam questions look like. So basically, making sure that as you progress through the program, we're setting it up in a way that allows you to put all the pieces of the puzzle together so that the next steps just kind of come naturally. The work is there. You got to put the time in. You got to study all those things, but you're not trying to decode the curriculum at the same time, if that makes sense. In terms of specific support services, we will have an advising program. So every student will be assigned to a faculty member that's kind of their go-to person. Ultimately, when we have upperclassmen, we will also have upperclassmen that are assigned to the brand new baby vet students too. We won't have any of those right at first. And so we'll have faculty advisor support. We will also have an embedded learning strategist in our college. So here at Clemson, the Academic Success Center is a place that undergraduates can go and kind of get help with all the things, time management. I don't understand these notes, et cetera, et cetera. We will have one of those people embedded at the vet school. We will also have an embedded mental health counselor that will be available just for veterinary students. So anyone that needs to pop in and talk about what's going on. We will have a person specifically that is a liaison to accessibility services as well. So if a student is concerned that, maybe they need accommodations for certain things, we will have an embedded person that can help with that as well. So we will have a really very robust student services team, and everything the students need to be successful will be on our kind of little satellite campus, except for student health services. Like if you need a COVID test, you're going to have to come back to main campus, but everything else we have there and will be specific for the veterinary students.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And on the campus, will there be a parking and like a bookstore, any a cafeteria?
Library, cafeteria, a gym.
A gym.
We'll have a gym out there. We'll have some wellness, sensory rooms. So if you're a person that's well, I'm overstimulated, I need to go sit in a, dimly lit room and color in a coloring book, we will have that. We'll have lactation rooms for moms. So yeah, it's kind of in my experience, vet students live in the vet buildings, right? They're there morning and night. They're coming up at 10 o'clock to study. They bring their dog with them, all this kind of stuff. So we want this very much to feel like home. So it's been very intentionally designed to really create spaces that feel like a community where you can come hang out and study. The second floor of the main building, where the little cafeteria is, there's going to be a patio, with seating and stuff. And I don't know. I'm really excited. Obviously, I'm horribly biased, but I think it's going to be very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Just seeing the pictures online and everything, I'm like, ooh, I'm so excited.
We're hoping to have walking trails through the forest. And of course, it's right across the street from the horse farm, which, again, what is better than watching horses graze like nothing? So, I think it'll be very cool. And I think what'll be really neat to be in one of the first inaugural classes is that the students will make it even better, right? We've built these buildings, here's the shell of what we have, and then it's going to be so key for those first few classes to give us feedback about hey, it would be great on this patio, a whatever, or we need an extra umbrella out here, just little things like that I think it'll be really interesting to watch these first few classes kind of embrace their guinea pig-ish, you're the first ones. We're going to be constantly harassing you for feedback, is the soap weird in the bathroom, everything, right? Because it's going to be, iterative. Every year we're going to welcome a new group of students, and we want the program to just get better and better and better each year.
So for the first cohort, do you have any anticipated challenges in terms of curriculum or even just the pending accreditation? Obviously, that's hanging over your head still. But
Well, we got our letter of reasonable assurance. You probably saw that online. And so we no longer have to say pending accreditation after everything.
Wonderful.
Which is really nice. accreditation will not really impact the students whatsoever. We will have the accrediting team will come and visit the campus a few times during their 4-year period. They'll have an opportunity to interact with the accreditors. They'll interview the students, things like that. But that's true of all accredited schools. So if you happen to be at a vet school that's in their accreditation cycle, you would have those same interactions. We'll just have a few more since we're kind of in our, junior phase, so to speak. So from a curricular standpoint, no, I think what we're planning is going to be amazing. I think, will there be hiccups? Absolutely. Like, there's not enough plugs in this room, or the light's not bright enough, or the scheduling thing we had planned to use doesn't work. There's, of course, going to be issues, right? But I think for students that are excited to make their mark on a program and on the field of veterinary medicine and like kind of the whole state, it's pretty cool to be in one of the first classes, right? Like the student leadership especially, we're going to be looking to them a lot, being like, what can we do better? What can we change? And since we're growing this from the ground up, we can make changes and make them fairly quickly, right? We won't have that institutional knowledge of, well, we've been doing it like this for 100 years. Like, we don't have that. Like, if it's not working, we can change it. So I think it'll be a lot, maybe a little extra responsibility than if you were going to another established school. But I don't know. Maybe I'm pie in the sky, but I think it's a really neat opportunity. But I don't foresee any challenges. I think, in fact, being the only 80 students at a vet school for a whole year is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like if you were to join a class at another school and join the class of 150 at Georgia, your class is 150, but then the second years are there, the third years are there, the fourth years are there, so you're just one of a pile of 600 students. Here you're just 80 in that first class. So the faculty-student ratio is pretty great from the beginning. So, yeah.
And do you think those facilities will all be ready by fall of 2026?
We do, yeah. So
What's on there?
everything is on track as far as I know. I'm obviously not out there building the buildings, but we're due to move in that summer. And again, we'll still be putting some things together, right? Like, we won't have the entire surgery suite ready but we don't really do surgery till 2027 anyway, right? So there's things that'll take time to get them exactly the way we want them. But yeah, we'll be ready to go.
That's great. So excited.
I know.
I drive by it sometimes and I'm like, it's just like...
It's really beautiful, isn't it? I know. Yeah, we're very excited.
So in terms of hands-on, what can students expect to get like with models and with real animals, and how quickly will they be using all these like...
Right from the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be important that students are ready to start handling animals in the first week of their time at the Clemson Vet School. So you got to get your rabies shots before you start. So we will have, I think, a really amazing combination of simulation and live animal work. So obviously being here at Clemson, we have a herd of dairy cows that's just standing around waiting on some vet students, right? We've got our equine herd that is going to be an amazing teaching resource. And we're going to have a really well kitted out simulation area as well. So we have a whole part of our curriculum is kind of our clinical skills theme that goes throughout. It's 2 credit hours throughout the entire 3 years of the curriculum each semester. That is just doing those kind of hands-on psychomotor skills, right? So we start from the very beginning with things like, do you know how to wash your hands? Seems silly, but that's really important, right? To make sure that you're adequately preparing yourself to touch your patients. Handling of equipment, syringes and needles, things like that. And then starting out with the animals, like if you've never put a halter on a horse before, we're going to practice on this plastic horse before you go to the real horse, right? And we will test you on that. Same thing with a cow. Do you know how to safely move around animals? So making sure that everyone feels comfortable with all species from the very beginning. Not all, but the big core species. So if you're not a person with a large animal background, by the time you graduate Clemson, you will be comfortable around large animals. You may not want to do large animal medicine, but you will be comfortable around those animals. So I think we have a really great program related to that. what the intent is then with the simulation is to make sure that students have an opportunity to practice skills in a safe space on a model before they practice it in the live animal, right? So we will simulate anesthesia. We will simulate surgery. We will simulate all of those things before in year 3 we hand you a dog from the shelter and say, this is now your patient, right? So students have a lot of opportunity to make sure they feel confident in those skills before they're doing it on the live animal. So, yeah.
And I know you mentioned a lot of like large animals, there's going to be those opportunities for students, but in terms of small animal, cats, dogs, and stuff, how are you going to be incorporating that into the...
That's great. So in all the same ways. So we'll use a combination of what we kind of are thinking of as like our pet professor program. So having dogs from the CVM community. So faculty, staff, and students bring their dogs in for non-invasive labs. We're also developing relationships with the local shelters where, as you can imagine, there are a plethora of animals that need to come in and have all the things done, and sometimes just need to be handled and petted and all those good things. So it'll be a combination of those things. So,
are you working with PAWS, hopefully?
Yes, so there's relationship with PAWS and the Pickens County Shelters and Humane Societies. There's so many organizations that are doing that kind of important work in this area that I think can really benefit from the support of the vet school. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So because PCVM isn't, established as some might put it, how would you think that first inaugural class and maybe the following cohorts will feel coming out of the school? Like, do you believe that they'll be able to get a job just as easy and that it will look good on their resume, and like those concerns people might be having about it not being established, how do you feel like that will turn out?
Well, when they graduate and pass the NAVLE, the fact that we are still in our accreditation phase has no bearing on their employability or licensure whatsoever. So now that we have our letter and we're moving through the process, our graduates will be treated just like any other graduate. I think you know this as well as most people do, that being a graduate from Clemson is a big deal in this state, and I think the same will be true for our veterinary school. So there's a lot of Clemson graduates who graduated from Clemson with an ABS degree, went to Georgia or Mississippi State or Tuskegee, and have come back to the state to practice, which is what we want, right? We want people that want to stay in the state. So I don't foresee any issues whatsoever with our students when they graduate being able to find employment. It's a very good time to find a job as a vet. I don't think that'll change by 2030. And I think especially those veterinarians who want to stay in the state of South Carolina, I think, and bear in mind, too, that our students will be out training in these practices.
Right.
So practices all over the state will get to experience how amazing Clemson vet students are, and probably hire a lot of them as well from the very beginning. So I think that's another really attractive piece of that distributive model program. So if you look at other distributive model schools in the U.S., students in distributive model schools get more job offers, and they get earlier job offers in their 4th year because of the fact they're out in those practices getting that real world experience. So, yeah. So, no, we're not worried.
That's good. Do you believe the class size will increase over time? I know it's starting at 80, but are you hoping for it to get bigger?
I'm very hoping it for stay 80 as long as possible.
Okay.
Yep. We will not increase class size unless we get that request from the state legislature.
Okay.
So the class size will increase and respond to market demand. So if after a few years of graduating classes of 80, we are still not seeing the deficit of veterinarians in South Carolina improve, then we could potentially increase our class size, but we don't have any plans to do that anytime soon.
Okay. And then I know UGA has a program like this where they kind of go in late on Wednesdays, like a half day.
Yeah.
Is that similar to what you were talking about in terms of making sure that students aren't at school 8 to 5 every day?
Yes.
Okay.
So we are planning to have one afternoon or morning off every week, to be determined exactly what day that is. I'm pushing for Friday afternoon, but I don't know if I'm going to win. So, but yeah, I think that's really important because you may end up with some time off. We'll do an hour and a half lunch, which I think is really helpful for people as well. But there are some days where you're going to be there, and busy and engaged throughout the day. So I think it's really nice to have that one either morning or afternoon off for a week. So yeah, that's the goal. Stay tuned. It's going to get trickier in 3rd year when you're doing surgery. Because, if your dog hasn't woken up, you can't be like, well, I'm going to the bank. You would be like, no, sorry.
All right. So I guess my last question for you would be, if there's one piece of advice you could tell your younger self through the whole application process and even vet school, what would that be?
Ooh, one piece of advice that I could tell. I think it would be to develop some healthy coping strategies for stress,
That's a good one.
because it's stressful. We can't remove all stress, right? And that's true of life. I will say that younger me coped, but probably not in the healthiest ways that I could have, right? And it took some growing up for me to recognize that there are actual ways that you can embrace stress and make it a positive in your life. And so I think if I had figured that out earlier,
Yeah.
things would have been a lot easier. So.
Like a little smoother.
A little smoother, yeah, and embracing that growth mindset side of things, right? Like, I think that was a big struggle for me throughout my 20s and probably most of my 30s too, is to recognize that failure's part of it, right? And that you grow from that rather than needing to have that perfection at all times. So
Yeah.
that's,
Very important.
Yes. I like to call myself a recovering perfectionist, meaning I still am one, but I'm in recovery.
I like that term. All right. Well, I think that's all for today. Thank you so much again for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you. Again, a huge thanks to Dr. Wise for coming on the podcast today, and a huge thanks to everyone who's listened. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at @thefuturedrbarker, and stay tuned for next month's episode. Bye-bye. Should I end it? And cut?
Okay, that was actually a good end.